Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Greetings, Maverick family and new viewers. Oh, you've been in despair. You've been hoping and praying, and then you've been disappointed and let down. Because at every turn, it looks like Justin Trudeau will be there forever. 2 confidence motions defeated in the House, all within, a week? But don't despair. Trudeau's in trouble. If you're in the Trudeau's gotta go camp, more evidence today that he's on the way out. New poll shows Trudeau descending into danger. Record low polling for young Trudeau, and more pressure being applied in the House. The Bloc Québécois sticking to this October 29th deadline to get what they want, improvements to benefits for pensioners. And if they don't get it, they're saying we'll be going to the polls before the new year. We have that story. Plus, the CIA, is looking for informants in places all around the world. We'll tell you about that too. We have so many other stories to talk about tonight. But the Trudeau slide probably dominating things here, especially for our Canadian audience. And then there's this story of Rishi Nagar, Calgary radio show host, who was assaulted, speaking out. We'll catch up with that as well. He says what happened to him was really an assault on journalism. Looks to me like it's connected quite possibly to international politics and the whole political situation in India. Connected to Canada, connected to all kinds of other dangerous things. We'll get into it on the other side of this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV,
the entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, let's start on the the world stage first. Just looking at what's been going on in the Middle East, still is not entirely clear, really, what the full impact of the Iranian missile strikes into Israel, what the full impact of that has been, because we are in the fog of war. It does appear that reports of those missiles causing damage at least 2 Israeli air bases, that appears to be credible. The reports of as many as 20 Israeli jets, F-35s and F-15s, being destroyed, not so clear. That is not information I have been able to verify. The assertions that that happened have been coming from pro-Iranian, pro-Russian social media influencers. Some of them, maybe even all of them, I don't know. Some of them definitely propaganda sites. So I'm not putting a lot of weight behind those reports, but I'm not completely dismissing them either, because I know that Israel also has some censorship in place, possibly. If not officially, then in reality, they're trying to control the flow of information too. I don't think there's any question there was damage done to those 2 air bases, but I don't think they lost 20 jets. I think that if that had happened, we would be hearing a lot more about it, because it would be a major blow. Videos and reports indicated that Iran's missile strike targeted Israeli air bases like Nevatim and Tel Nof, along with claims of targeting other military infrastructure. And while there was damage acknowledged, which I think is accurate, specific mentions of destroyed jets have not been detailed in any of the credible information that I have been able to uncover thus far. So we're continuing to follow that. And if they destroyed that many jets, I am certain that in the next day or so, we would have heard about it by now. In real terms, we would have had much wider coverage of it. You can't, in that kind of society, hold back the media and hide damage of that extent in this current environment. So I'm not buying the reports that all those jets were lost. Was there more damage done than Israel is suggesting? Oh, maybe, probably. Probably. And we're also seeing there were clashes today. At least eight Israeli soldiers, or 6, for sure 6, maybe as many as 8. Mixed reports on this as well today, but at least 6 Israeli soldiers killed in Lebanon. And we're also seeing reports tonight that since over the past 2 weeks, we've had about 1,000 deaths in Lebanon. So we're seeing more escalation there. And what I see really going on is there is an ongoing effort to disrupt and displace the United States in the Middle East, and by extent, and Israel, so that Iran can assert its dominance in the region. That is really what is happening. And a lot of speculation about where the Biden administration, the current Biden administration, Biden-Harris, really stands on this issue. On the one hand, supplying weapons to Israel. On the other hand, there are reports of the Biden administration actually communicating with Iran at the same time and conveying information making suggestions, I guess, on what kind of response, what level of response might be actually appropriate, so as not to, I guess, fuel greater escalation and a greater war that maybe Iran can't ultimately handle. A lot of propaganda on both sides, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of threats. And it doesn't appear to me, from everything I've been reading, seeing, learning, doesn't look to me like Iran really has enough firepower to go up against this, even though they're projecting power in the region. You know, they just don't have the jets and they don't have the air power. They have missiles, rockets, and drones, but it's just not, they just don't have, from what I've seen, the stats I've looked at, they just don't have enough. And maybe a broader war with more of these countries all coming together, that might be a little bit different story. But anyway, you slice it, we're into a really dangerous situation, and I think you're getting mixed messages from Western governments here in the United States and Canada in particular. And even here in Canada, people are not aware, largely, that Canada has banned the sale of even defensive weapons to Israel. And at the same time, Justin Trudeau stands up and flaps his gums and says that Israel has the right to defend itself. But of course, Canada really doesn't have much firm ground to stand on, at least Trudeau doesn't, I wouldn't say, with regard to this issue, given that he's kind of, at least in public, playing both sides off against each other. Not really clear where the Liberals stand on this. They say they're with Israel, but I don't think they necessarily are. Their actions and even a lot of their other rhetoric suggests otherwise. Look at the levels of immigration in Canada. And where are those immigrants coming from? Well, here's Trudeau today. He had a call with other G7 leaders and then was met by reporters on the Hill. Here we go. Justin Trudeau. Oh, I need to wait for this cue to firm up. Here we go.
7 leaders regarding the situation in the Middle East. We unreservedly condemn Iran's ballistic missile attack against Israel. It is further destabilizing action by this terrorist regime in the region, putting civilians at risk and running the risk of a wider war. Obviously, Israel has the right to defend itself against these attacks. At the same time, we have to try and do everything we can to avoid a wider war, to protect civilians, and to get humanitarian aid into affected regions. As an international community, we have to continue to do everything we can to call for peace and stability, which means calling for a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, calling for ceasefire in Gaza, and getting, again, back on track for a two-state solution where a peaceful, secure, stable Israeli state is living alongside a peaceful, secure, stable Palestinian state. Je viens de finir un appel avec les autres.
Okay, and Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly will be along in a moment. Here we go.
Foremost, I would like to condemn the attacks by the terrorist regime in Iran against Israel. These were unprecedented attacks. 200 ballistic missiles. We've never seen that. And I'm reassured that there was no loss of innocent lives. And at the same time, Israel has said that they would retaliate and Iran would face severe consequences. Canada's role right now and Canada's goal is to make sure that there's no full-scale war in the Middle East. And so that's why we'll continue to engage diplomatically. You just heard the Prime Minister. He was in contact with the G7 leaders this morning. Let me talk to you also about Lebanon. At this point, we've been able to get hundreds of Canadians out of Lebanon through the Beirut airport. Yesterday, we made around 1,000 calls to Canadians, and at this point, we were able to get around 310 of them on the next flights. We were also able to offer seats to American, Australians, and New Zealanders on that flight. We have 654 seats available. So you can see that basically there's still lots of seats that are available to Canadians. So my point to those watching or listening to us is if you're offered a seat, please take it. And I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult to leave your loved ones. I understand it's difficult to leave sometimes your home, but please, this is about your own safety and the safety of your loved ones, so please take the seat.
Okay. So that's more of the same. We heard all of that really yesterday. The only real difference is Trudeau had that phone call with other G7 leaders. And the other thing that's different is he's continuing to slide in the polls. He is in so much trouble. I mean, really. I think what you're going to get is a record, an unprecedented landslide victory for the Conservatives in the next election. A 20-point lead now is what the Conservatives have. 20 points. Over 20 points. In the polls. And here's the 338 poll as of today. New numbers. If there were an election called today, according to this poll, the Conservatives would win 221 seats. You need, I think it's 172 for a majority. Like, this is just like a crazy landslide. That's what's in store for Trudeau and Poilievre of the Conservative Party. You know, even if you combine the percentages in the most recent polling, if you combine the Liberals and the NDP, they still don't match what the Conservatives have. Some polls actually give the Conservatives like 50% of decided voters, and really people are so fed up that when asked, the people, I think the majority of people who have indicated they are going to vote Conservative are indicating that they are not going to budge. There's little, if anything, that can change their minds at this point. That's why Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives is pushing so hard to get an election rolling here. Everything favors the Conservatives. If they can trigger an election, he's away to the races. There won't be enough time, given this level of given the lead, the size of the lead that the Conservatives have. The Liberals can't recover from that in like 30 to 60 days. Almost impossible. Something catastrophic would have to happen. It's possible. But that too would be unprecedented. Now, I'd say don't count the Liberals out because, you know, they have a very powerful election machine behind them. But man, I'll tell you, every indication is we're going to the polls. Because what happened with the Bloc Québécois? Well, they've been putting pressure on the Liberals. And just like the NDP, they're trying to squeeze Justin Trudeau, and they're refusing to vote with the Conservatives on these non-confidence motions to trigger an election early. So they're continuing to vote against the Conservatives on these motions. But in return, they want something back from the Liberals. In this case, the Bloc wants improvements to pension benefits for seniors. But there are cracks developing as well. We have, let me see, I have the leader of the Bloc ready to go here. And he will tell you what happened with this vote on this motion. And he's not quite getting what he wants. So the House voted in favor of this Bloc motion to improve benefits for seniors. But the Liberals are still standing in the way of it. And the Bloc has now given Trudeau a deadline of October 29th to give them what they want. Or the Bloc says we are going to go to the polls early, before Christmas. Did you hear what I said? Before Christmas. So I keep telling you, we can still have an election before the year is out, and if we don't, I think we're looking at spring. But this could happen. It could happen even after Christmas during the winter, but generally we don't have winter elections here in Canada. That could also be unprecedented. And who knows, maybe it will happen simply because there's so much momentum behind the Conservatives, and Canadians are pushing hard for this. Okay, here's the leader of the Bloc.
To work with the Liberal government when they voted down this motion is not sending a signal of some sort.
Okay, let's understand things as they are. The government, I will learn that word one day, did not have the spine to provide us and Canadians and Quebecers with a clear answer. First, the Parliament voted clearly in favor of the motion. Then the government said that the ministers could not vote in favor of the motion, but that this vote would be free for other members of Parliament affiliated with the Liberals. And then they said that's because it's a procedure thing that prevented them from making a clear decision. So they just want to get some more time and to keep not deciding about anything. They might hope that they will go further than October 29th. They will not. So they have until a few days from now to go on with the royal recommendation.
Bill C-319.
And if they do not, we will start as rapidly as next week to speak with other oppositions in order to get ready to go into an election. And I will tell you both in English and French that it is noticeable that the NDP voted in favor of this motion and that they could have eventually to assume the consequences of such a vote if we get to the next step without the government providing us and Canadians and Québécois with what we want. Et ça, je vais vous le dire en français aussi. Il doit bien y avoir des journalistes.
So, October 29th. So this non-binding motion he's talking about, it still passed by a vote of 181 to 143 in the House, and because the bloc had the support of the other opposition parties. So Trudeau only has a minority government. That means all the minority parties, the other parties, can gang up on the Liberals and overwhelm them in the House with votes. And that's what happened here. 181 to 143. They voted in favor of this bill, Bill C-319. And it's one of two bills that Blanchette has put to the government. And Trudeau's on notice now. So under parliamentary rules, because Bill C-319 seeks to spend public funds, though, a royal recommendation must be provided or the legislation will be deemed out of order. So this is a line in the sand for Blanchette, and he's seeing significant progress here on both Bill C-319 and Bill C-82, seeking supply management protections in future trade talks. Canada's big on supply management in certain sectors, especially dairy. And he says if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to start negotiating with the Conservatives and the NDP. Here we go.
The October 29th deadline is still in effect. I just want you to clarify. I just want to clarify in English, the October 29th deadline is still in effect. You're still giving the Liberals time to, give the royal recommendation despite the vote today.
At the very beginning of this is if the Liberals do not give us what we demand on behalf of 4 million Canadians and 1 million Quebecers and supply management, we will start discussing with opposition in order to have this government fall. If in the meantime it becomes clear that it is impossible to achieve that, we will start those discussions. But what we saw today is not by itself a proof that it's impossible. They could decide, notwithstanding the motion, to give the royal recommendation to C-319. It's still possible. So let's be fair with our commitment, even if it's quite clear that it's not good news and that electoral alert is a bit higher and people should start taking pictures.
Yourself because have come out and said this is bad policy. It's cabinet that has to give the royal recommendation. Are you being honest with yourself about the chances of the bill actually passing?
Yes, I am. And I think I'm even honest with you. I'm not certain at all that this bill will pass. Not certain at all. But I said we will give this government one chance to do something right for many Quebecers and many Canadians. If they do not seize the opportunity, then the most probable scenario will go forward. We will start discussing in order to have an election and compose a new parliament. Many things may happen. Nobody says that the NDP will not start supporting the government again. We don't know that. The Prime Minister might decide to prorogue the parliament. He might even have a blip of leadership and decide to go into election himself. So the chances that our bills are really adopted and implemented are not so good, but I keep fighting in order to have this done because that's the right thing to do. The numbers being what they are, we might want to go into election also, but we do want to get something to those people between 65 and 74 years old and to producer under supply management.
Okay, so what he wants is he wants what he wants, and he's determined to get it, just like Jagmeet Singh is determined to get what he wants. And they've got the leverage to do it right now if Trudeau wants to stay in power. Because if there's an election right now, the Liberals will be devastated. Just creamed. They'll get the crap kicked out of them. And that will be very, very, very bad. Very bad. He needs time to recover, time to do something to shore up his support, time to drive some of those wedges in, which he has become so good at, wedge politics, find those issues to divide and conquer. What can he do? I don't know. But they have something planned. He's got something up his sleeve. But it's still early. He needs time. Time to implement, time to change public opinion. That's where things stand right now. In Canada, we'll shift our focus when we come back to the world stage again. Don't go away. More ahead.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Biden, Harris, both touring storm-ravaged areas of the United States in the wake of Hurricane Helene. They surveyed communities battered by floods. They took separate trips on this day, spanning 3 southern states, both vowing the federal government will not leave until the recovery is complete. And all they're saying that, a lot of other people saying the response has been woefully inadequate. Biden stopped in Greenville, South Carolina, took an aerial tour of the devastation in nearby Asheville, North Carolina, before he received an emergency operational briefing that happened down in the state capital, Raleigh. Harris went her own way to Augusta, Georgia, where she provided an update. And we're going to go there now and pick up Harris's comments. Vice President seeking the big chair in the Oval Office, and right here, working, doing her job, I guess, surveying the storm damage. Here we go. Let's pick it up.
Augusta to first and foremost thank the federal, state, and local leaders. Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership in particular on the ground. I am here to personally take a look at the devastation, which is extraordinary, and it is and particularly devastating in terms of the loss of life that this community has experienced. the loss of normalcy, and the loss of critical resources. And so I'm here today to thank all of those who are working to get folks the support and the relief that they so desperately need and so rightly deserve. And that includes the fact that still in this community, up to 60% of the residents here do not have power. Many have been without running water for at least a couple of days now. Many have water but no hot water. I was just talking with one of the members of the community and her daughter who lost her husband. And there is real pain and trauma that has resulted because of this hurricane and what has happened in terms of the aftermath of it. I do want to acknowledge and thank the first responders who have been extraordinary. Having met with them, they are the kind of folks that are the heroes in moments of crisis, who do extraordinary work that is about lifting up other people. As it relates in particular to the leaders who are here and doing that work, including the first responders, most of them, as it relates to the local folks, are folks who have personally, and their families have personally experienced loss and devastation, and yet they leave their home, leave their family to go to centers like where I was earlier to do the work of helping perfect strangers. And it really does highlight the nobility of the kind of work that these public servants have dedicated themselves to, which can be in moments of crisis like this so selfless in the way that they do that work. The president and I have been paying close attention from the beginning to what we need to do to make sure the federal resources hit the ground as quickly as possible. And that includes what was necessary to make sure that we provided direct federal assistance. And that work has been happening. I want to thank the governor for his leadership and his close coordination with the federal government, with our administration. And I want to thank the local leaders for together creating a task force-like response, knowing that we are at our best when we work together and coordinate resources, coordinate our communications to the maximum effect for the community that has been impacted. And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity. But also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied for online, and I encourage people to do that. FEMA will just basically verify your address, and then the process should take hold. FEMA is also providing tens of thousands more dollars for folks to help them be able to deal with home repair, to be able to cover a deductible when and if they have insurance, and also hotel cost. Today I'm also announcing that the president has approved the governor's request for 100% federal reimbursement of local costs. And Mayor, as you have pointed out, the burden to local governments, including the state government, is pretty immense. And so by announcing today and making the dedicated resources to cover 100% of local costs will have a huge impact on our ability to get relief to people as quickly as possible. And that will include, for example, what the federal government will do to reimburse local and state governments around issues like debris removal, which you can see just up and down this street, much less in other areas of the state and in the region. This is a big issue. I was speaking with one of the residents of the community who needs that big tree removed so she can actually get to work and make sure that her child is able to get to school when the schools reopen. So this is a very big part of the recovery process. That money of the federal reimbursement will also help with emergency services that are now being provided by the state, so that they can be reimbursed and then have the resources to keep providing those emergency services. Also, we will be covering the local government costs for food, water, and shelter. Again, resources that are desperately needed by the members of this community. And so my final point to the residents of this community and the region is that we are here for the long haul. There is the work that we have done together that was the immediate response, well, preparation for, and then the immediate response after. But there's a lot of work that's going to need to happen over the coming days, weeks, and months. And the coordination that we have dedicated ourselves to will be long-lasting to get families, to get residents, to get neighborhoods back up and running. And my last point is this. I think that in these moments of hardship, one of the beauties about who we are as a country is people really rally together and show the best of who they are in moments of crisis. And we've seen that throughout the region, where communities are coming together, where people are helping perfect strangers, where they are providing food, water, shelter for their neighbors, and that neighbor may be somebody they've never met before, but are doing the work of helping each other out. And I think it really highlights the fact that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, and that the strength of who we are is we come to each other's aid in a time of need. So I thank everyone for doing that kind of work every day. And with that, there is more work to be done.
Okay. That'll suffice for that. So Harris getting a little bit of FaceTime on media with that, social media and mainstream media. And I think Harris and Trump both sort of overshadowed by last night's vice presidential debate, which again, I'm going to say I thought it was a better debate than the ones we saw previously, the presidential debates. And all day I've been seeing social media posts from both sides trying to, make something out of it that's going to score points politically one way or the other. And there were moments during the debate, I would say, when Vance in particular scored some points, like when he was fact-checking the moderators themselves, and then they had their mics cut off. That was a moment, and I was like, you're out of order, you're all out of order. I thought it was a little bit humorous, but also telling. And so, yeah, Vance, as I said, I think that he came away with a little bit of an edge. I think he sort of maybe won the debate, but it would depend on your point of view and probably your political leanings. If you're a Democrat, you probably think that Walz won. If you're a Republican or a MAGA supporter, you probably feel that Vance won. In reality, I think it was very, very close. It isn't really clear where the undecideds will land on this. I don't think that either vice presidential candidate scored a knockout blow. As a result, I don't think it shifted the needle very much. Maybe Vance, again, not so much that he won the debate, but gained the most ground, I think, because I think as someone who really is something still of an unknown to a lot of voters, he really scored big points right off the top. When instead of just directly answering the first question, he used half of his allotted time for that answer to introduce himself to people. And he did so in a very personable way. He looked approachable, he looked friendly, and both of them really were friendly to each other. Respectful is the word. Walz also later, after he kind of got over his debate jitters, which were pretty evident, at the end of the debate, in the second half, he was in better form. And he also managed, I think, to overcome some of the negative image that he's created for himself at these rallies, where he just looks a little too exuberant, a little too over-enthusiastic, not very vice presidential at times with his motions and antics on stage, where he looks like he's almost cheerleading instead of engaging in public discourse. So he overcame some of that last night, and he came off much more credible and showed that he really does have a very firm grasp on the issues. Whether you agree with his views or not, he did bring facts and figures and solid arguments on his side, and so too did Vance, both of them. That made the entire debate much more, there was a lot more meat on the bone there for people, because it wasn't about emotion, it wasn't so much name calling or attacks, it wasn't weirdness. There was none of the, they're eating the cats and the dogs. There was none of that. I think the bait was thrown out for Vance by Walz when he started bringing up the situation in Ohio with immigration. He threw it out there, but Vance wisely didn't bite on that. He didn't say anything about cats or dogs. Because if he had, I think he would have gotten bitten. It would have come back to haunt him, for sure. And the big issue that really two things went unanswered. And this was interesting as well. Further analysis from last night. Walz was asked about some sort of, discrepancy in what he had said previously about being at Tiananmen Square during the uprising there many years ago. Was that in '89, I think? And then there's this report that came out that said that he couldn't have been there. And I think what they did, you see, is, you're not really supposed to give the questions to the candidates in advance. But the story about that came out in advance, and it was published yesterday prior to the debate. I mentioned it in my preview of what was going to be coming up in the broadcast last night. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, this is a very sly way of giving their preferred candidate the questions in advance. They didn't slide him a piece of paper. They didn't do anything that could be uncovered later and then turned into a scandal. Why did you give him the question on that in advance? So they didn't give it to him. So they gave it to everybody. They gave it to the world. They did this story about the story. There were stories done saying that it looked like he was going to be asked about it, and they even gave the information to the, to the Vance team as well. And so that way, Walz knew that this was going to be coming up, so he had time to prepare. And his response was a non-response. It was a word salad that went around in circles, and he didn't actually answer the question. He just called himself a knucklehead and talked about misspeaking. And isn't that interesting? I mean, he sort of portrayed himself as sort of a Fred Flintstone kind of character. Well, I'm kind of a knucklehead sometimes. And he got away with it because they didn't press him. Even Vance didn't press him on it. But that may have been because he might have had a vulnerability or two also. So I think there might have been a little bit of a gentleman's etiquette going on there. Gentleman's debate etiquette, so that they didn't go too hard on one another. Saying that, yeah, I understand, man, when you misspeak. Because Vance had his moment too. But I think that whole thing, as it played out, was like a strategy. It was like a get-out-of-jail-free card for Walz. They couldn't, ethically give him the question on the sly. So we're going to be asking you about this, so you better have your answer ready. They didn't give it to him in secret. They just wrote a story telling the world that this is an issue that they were going to be bringing up that would throw his integrity into question. And so by doing that, they neutered the effects of the story. And they gave him the opportunity to come back with that and be prepared in advance with a response that got him off the hook. He got out of jail free. Pretty slick. That's my assessment on it. Now, maybe I'm just being paranoid. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. But that's my conspiracy theory. And I'm sticking to it. I'll have more on the other side.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
All right, and I do want to thank those of you who helped us out with donations. We got a couple of donations last night. Very, very helpful at a time when we really need it. We really do need the support. And I'm extremely, extremely grateful. I sent messages to you guys along with the Free Dog 10-song collection of Freedom tunes. So there's a thank you attached to those messages. And I just want to personally thank you guys for your support. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. You can support the program at maverickdonations.com, or you can also donate at freedomreporters.com. That's where most people donate. That's the PayPal link. Takes you right to the PayPal donation page. And if you donate $10 or more, I'll send you the Free Dog album, 10 Songs of Freedom, brought to you by, created by Maverick and the News Brothers. And I love the Cosmo song, Free Dog, the title track, and Free Dog Reprise, the two tunes. Just two different versions of it, but I think it's so much fun. But it's about my dog. It's about your mascot, Cosmo. And $30 more, I'd be happy to send you a t-shirt as a big thank you. Maverick News t-shirt, or one of the Trump t-shirts, Fighting for Freedom, or just the Trump Fight shirt with the image of him with his fist in the air after being shot in the ear. We've also got the Exile of the Knights of Malta t-shirts. We've also got still a couple of these limited edition Maverick News hoodies. Yes, we do. In blue. Everything else is in black, but I have just a few of these in blue still. A couple. But one person's getting one. You know who you are. I don't know if I should mention names or not. Here, I suppose, Isabel, I could say your name. Thank you. And, and we've also got these Maverick News polo shirts. They're really good, nice quality, and embroidered Maverick News logo right there. Just like this one. only these are polos. Very comfortable, and they'll last a long time. Not the cheap stuff. So I've got those, and the 45, a donation of $45 or more, and I'll send you one of those. So we've got stuff to choose from. Might have some sweatshirts too. Not sure. Gotta check. Lots of stuff sitting over there though. So yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for your support. I think we've still got some of these work shirts too. We've got embroidered button-up shirts. So if you want anything like that, you can email me if you're not sure, if you have questions about it. And oh yeah, and I guess some people wanted to help out, but they didn't want to use any kind of online payment. They want to send physical paper checks. You can do that. Maverick donations by mail at 4 Clover Place, Chatham, Ontario, Canada, N7L 5G5. And thank you everybody again for your ongoing support. Can't do this without you. It's pretty tough out here doing this independent media thing, especially when we're completely demonetized on YouTube and Facebook not being very friendly to us these days either, as you know. But we're still here, and that's because of you guys. Can't do it without you. Thank you. Now, we were talking about what was it we were talking about before? There was some segue that I had kind of queued up in my head, but I've lost my train of thought. It was related to this story, though. I'll just get right into it. Former President Donald Trump is facing new allegations tonight in the ongoing federal election interference case. Special counsel Jack Smith's legal team argued today that Trump acted as a private candidate rather than as president when he attempted to overturn the results of the 2020 election. This is very important. The focus of this, the attack on this, the angle of attack is that he's acting as a private candidate, was acting as a private candidate, not as president, because of course you got that immunity ruling. What was that? Was that a month ago? Maybe longer, maybe 6 weeks, I think. So according to newly released court filing, Smith's team claims that Trump knew his assertions about election fraud were false, yet they say he spread these falsehoods, as they call them, as part of a broader plan to remain in power. And this came up during the debate last night. That was the other thing. That's what I wanted to say. That was the moment when Walz tried to get Vance to say that Donald Trump had lost the election and say and agree with him that Trump had lost the election, or that he believed that the election had been stolen. And Vance did not take a position like that. He danced around it, and I really took note of it. He didn't come out and say, yes, the election was, not fair. He didn't say anything like that. He instead came out with a comment basically that went something like, I'm focused on the future. And I thought that was interesting. It said to me he must be worried that if he says anything about this election integrity issue, it'll come back to bite him later somehow. I don't know. But he just, again, didn't take that bait. So he didn't get hooked on it. On that whole January 6th issue, where we saw these violent clashes happen at the Capitol, and two very different narratives coming out of that. And again, I think it depends on your perspective, how you view what happened on January the 6th, and which media you're looking at as well. Boy, at that time, the division between, in the country was on full display and was playing out right there at the Capitol. So Smith's team emphasized today that Trump must face trial, they say, for what they describe as private crimes. And they argued that a previous Supreme Court ruling that I mentioned just previously, which grants Trump immunity for certain official actions, does not apply to the allegations. In August, a federal grand jury adjusted the charges to align with the Supreme Court's decision, keeping the case focused on Trump's private efforts to hold on to power. So this filing also details Trump's increasingly desperate actions, as put out by Jack Smith's team, as described that way, to reverse election results in several key states, including Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And the special counsel's office maintains that Trump conspired with his campaign team and private individuals to obstruct the legitimate vote count through what they say was fraud and deceit. Trump's campaign spokesperson, Stephen Chung, has responded by calling the filing, in his words, falsehood-ridden, dismissing the allegations as part of a broader partisan effort to attack Trump and his campaign. Chung accused special counsel Jack Smith today of being deranged and says the case should be dismissed. This is a story that is far from over. Who can say deep state? I know that's where the thought process goes immediately, right? Deep state corruption, whatever the deep state is, however you want to characterize that. Not much trust there with some people in any government institution or in much of anything these days. Trust has been eroded largely because of politics. Does anybody trust the CIA? Probably not. I'm not even going to look in the chat. I can tell you that the CIA is expanding its efforts to help people share information securely, even in countries with strict authoritarian regimes, though. The agency has released new instructions in Farsi, Mandarin, and Korean to guide individuals on how to safely contact them. Basically, I think they're looking for informants. According to a statement from CIA, people are trying to reach out to us from around the world, they say, and they say that these people are offering them instructions, and rather they are offering instructions to these people for how to do that safely. And the security of those who do reach out to the CIA, they say, is of paramount importance to them, and they want to have people do it, but they're saying they want it to be done as safely as possible. So Farsi is widely spoken in Iran and neighboring countries. Yeah, well, they need intelligence in Iran right now. Well, Mandarin, with over 1 billion speakers, is the most common language in China, of course. So the instructions, which have been shared via text-based videos and infographics, have been posted online across various social media platforms and even on the dark web, ensuring access for individuals in high surveillance environments. The CIA also referenced the success of similar efforts in Russia, encouraging others in repressive regimes to use these secure methods to communicate with them. I'm going to take a very short break. When we come back, I'm hoping I can find one or two of these CIA social media posts reaching out to people in these countries that the CIA sees as oppressive, so we can see exactly what the messaging looks like. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Too late. Too late. Too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so yeah, I have it here. Let's go to CIA. This is what they're showing to people in other countries to get them to come forward and share information. I have no idea what it says. Text. I don't think there's any audio on this at all. Interesting. Now, I haven't seen anything here in Canada, so I guess we're not viewed as too much of a threat yet, but maybe we should be. Or the other way around, when I hear people like Tucker Carlson saying they want to invade Canada. Even if they mean well, I want them to stay out of my country, frankly. Not the CIA necessarily, but Tucker Carlson, if you're coming to invade, don't. Same too with Mr. Hinkle. Stay home. You don't want to come here. Don't you dare. You know, invade my country. Nobody. Anyway, that's what it looks like. There's the CIA. So back in, 2023, the CIA introduced similar instructions in Russian, detailing how to access a secure site through the Tor browser, which offers enhanced encryption for privacy, of course. And CIA Director William Burns has called this period a, quote, once-in-a-generation opportunity to recruit new sources, citing dissatisfaction in Russia following the country's invasion of Ukraine. Human rights groups point to the rise of digital authoritarianism in nations like China, Russia, and Iran, where online censorship and surveillance are used to suppress dissent and limit the free flow of information. I'll tell you, yeah, true, but we have, some pretty serious issues with censorship through big tech right now, too, here in the U.S. and Canada. Pretty serious issues. And they're hard to deal with because we also have unprecedented levels of, I would say, malicious propaganda, all designed to destabilize the country. So where do you draw the line? How do you deal with it? I would say this. Some people who say they're journalists are not. And some of these people who say they're journalists are being propped up by other people who say they're journalists and are not. And they say that they're doing it in the name of journalism when it isn't journalism at all. It's political activism and outright attacks on our society. Attempts to destabilize. But how do you define, how do you draw the line? How do you determine what's journalism and what isn't? Well, I think maybe transparency would go a long way in helping. If we could get honesty through transparency and required declarations, I guess, from people who are acting on behalf of foreign governments, so that you know who's who in the zoo of information flow. Human rights groups point to the rise of digital authoritarianism, as I say, in these countries like Well, I think it's everywhere, honestly. The CIA's instructions urge informants to take careful precautions. They want you to avoid the use of home or work computers if you contact them. And they say employing private browser modes and using encrypted browsers or trusted VPNs from outside hostile nations is advised. They also recommend activating what they call a kill switch feature on VPNs to automatically disconnect if the connection becomes vulnerable. So once messages are received, the CIA will evaluate them, they say, and then the responses, though, may take time and may not always be provided, depending on the security situation. And so they're also reminding informants to check their spam folders for any potential replies. So if you're, I guess, a would-be CIA informant out there someplace, check your spam. Uncle Sam might be trying to reach you.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight. For freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are 2 iconic artistic designs to choose from. But there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech. Free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
Okay, and we're just going to take a very short hiatus here while we I'm going to cue up the Free Dog tune. And again, if you support the program tonight with a donation of $10 or more, I will send you the full 10-song collection. The Free Dog album, the whole thing, you'll get them all. 10 songs of inspiration and hope, and positivity. Here it is, Free Dog featuring, well, he likes to put his picture up there, Cosmo, the Maverick mascot. And Free Dog by Maverick and the News Brothers.
I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune, lonesome dogs cry about freedom, running and touching the sky. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. Cosmo's got them paws that just itch to roam. He's chasing his dreams, he's far from home. With a heart full of love and a spirit so free, he's living his life wild and carefree. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird. Cosmo's on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the legs. Now the night's getting cold. when you're feeling lost, just think of Cosmos Run. Remember his spirit, his freedom, his fun. And maybe one day, when you're feeling low, you'll find your own freedom and let your spirit go. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. Eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard a bird, a heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard a bird. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through the fields, breaking all the lanes.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, are you guys aware of this story out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, involving this talk show host who was assaulted, Rishi Nagar? This is a very interesting story. This cuts deep into Canadian and Western society in ways that, you know, I don't think the general public maybe is picking up on. This is more serious than, you know, it's a bigger story, I guess is what I'm saying, than just a local story. And it's serious. I mean, he was severely beaten. And, like, I'll show you first of all. Here's coverage of it from Global News. Here's their website. And I find the kind of coverage that it's getting to be very interesting and even telling. So here's the way they're covering it. So this is a South Asian radio station that he works at. Calgary radio host is speaking out after he was attacked outside a banquet hall in northeast Calgary over the weekend. Rishi Nagar, a news director at Red FM, a South Asian station in Calgary, says he left the Rio banquet hall around 3 p.m. Sunday when he was approached by two men. He says they used some bad words, bad language, foul language, and then they gave me a thrashing, Nagar says. And there is closed-circuit television camera footage, security camera footage, that has been provided to the public by Red FM. And it shows the incident. He was severely beaten, has real serious injury to one eye. And then Calgary police are saying here there are no suspects in custody and the investigation is ongoing. And then there was this press conference that's been held, and Rishi says here that, well, he told the reporters there about a story that he reported on last week involving two men outside the Dash Mesh Culture Center back in September. And now back then, according to police, two men were arrested without incident, and they're facing weapons charges. And prior to the attack, Rishi says that the two men who confronted him Sunday told him that his story was, quote, not accurate. So Rishi Nagar says he believes the story is the reason behind the attack and feels it wasn't just an attack on him personally, but he says an attack on journalism. And he says he won't be silenced. But that's as far as this story goes. Now, I think that you may get more details in some other coverage, but I think that what's not being said is maybe as telling or more telling than the things that are being said. Because let's dive into what we know so far. According to Calgary Police Service, Rishi was attacked near the Rio Banquet Hall in the city's northeast. So the assault, which occurred around 3 p.m., left Rishi with severe injuries, including potential long-term damage to his eye. What's particularly chilling about this attack is the motive behind it, or possible motive. So Rishi mentioned that his assailants were upset over his recent reporting on crime within the Sikh community, specifically citing inaccuracies in his coverage. However, Rishi has clarified that this attack was not politically motivated, or so he says. But here's where things get a little more complex, folks. There's been considerable speculation and some reports suggesting possible connections between the assailants and broader geopolitical issues, specifically with India. This isn't just about local crime. It's potentially tied into international relations and the ongoing tensions between Canada and India, particularly after the allegations involving the killing of Hardeep Singh Najar in British Columbia, which Canada linked to Indian government agents. Now let's be clear here. These are allegations and need to be treated with caution. The Indian government has denied any involvement in Najar's assassination. This has created great tension, as you may recall, between Trudeau and the government of India. But it's undeniable that this incident has heightened tensions between the two countries. Could there be a connection here with Rishi's assault? It's something both the local police and perhaps even international investigators might be looking into, given the backdrop of these international events. Let's bring up the video of the CCTV footage, the security camera, to show you what happened over the weekend. Here we go. He describes what happened. This is
followed me.
Rishi speaking.
When I was about to reach my car, they just called me from back. I turned, and it was just a 1 minute talk, and the gentleman started giving me blows. And I couldn't remember how many blows he gave me. He just targeted my head and face, gave blows after blows, and then I somehow got up and I again fell down. And then a car came, and two gentlemen came out of that car. They immediately fled the scene. The other guys who came from the car, they picked me up. They consoled me. Then I came to my senses. These injuries are for sure painful. But what wounds me more deeply is the intent behind this assault. A clear attack on journalism and on the free press. This was not a personal attack on me alone. This was an assault on the very principles that bind us as a free and democratic society. To those who orchestrated this attack and to those who believe they can suppress the truth through violence, I must say, you will not succeed. The truth cannot be hidden. Our role as journalists is to ensure that public is informed and light is shined in the darkest corners of the society, and that those who engage in criminal activity are held accountable for their actions. We live in a rule of law society. I am confident that the perpetrators of this failed attempt to stifle the freedom of speech and a free media will be brought to justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Rishi, known for his work not just in journalism, but also for his contributions to the community, including his role in the Calgary Police Service's Anti-Racism Committee, has been a voice for a lot of people. And this attack, therefore, strikes at the core of the community's safety and freedom of the press. And they did tell him that it was, because his story wasn't accurate. There may be even broader motivations, as we just mentioned. The police have made arrests, but the investigation continues into whether this was an isolated incident of personal grievance over Rishi's reporting or something more sinister, possibly linked to the broader geopolitical drama involving the Sikh diaspora, the Khalistan movement, and the relations between Canada and India. And we've shown you some of those protests right here on Maverick News. So we'll keep you updated on this the best we can as more details emerge. For now, let's hope for Rishi's swift recovery, I guess, and for justice to be served. This incident is a stark reminder, isn't it, of the dangers journalists face, especially when their work intersects with sensitive political and community issues, and maybe even broader geopolitical issues. And that's the way it is in Canada on this second day of October, 2024. Again, folks, you can support the channel by hitting the like button. Give it a thumbs up. Like, share, subscribe. Give us the big thumbs up. It'll really help us. It doesn't cost you anything to give us a thumbs up. It would really help us out. Subscribe over on Rumble if you haven't already. And doesn't matter where you're at. Just hit the subscribe button. Won't hurt you. And then and hit the notification bell so that you'll know whenever we post a new video. But I'm here every night practically. Very few nights I'm not here. I think in the last few years I've only been gone, probably 4 or 5 or 6 days total that I've had off in all these years. But that's okay. I love being here with you guys every night. And even if you don't subscribe, even if you don't hit that notification bell, you can be pretty darn sure that I'm going to be here at 7 p.m. Eastern with bells on, doing my best to get us all a little bit closer to the truth. And it is interactive, and you guys are part of that. Share these stories out. Share the broadcast out. Share it all over the place. You're all Mavericks. That's what we do. We share information. You're part of it. It's interactive. You participate and share the information. Spread the truth. The real truth. Not propaganda. Not to say that we always agree. Look in the chat any given night. There's disagreement going on, but it's about free speech over here too. Real free speech. And we'll have more of it tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Special guest tomorrow night, 2 of them. From Calgary. You want to talk about the housing crisis? Well, the municipality out there thinks they have a solution, but some people in one neighborhood in Calgary think maybe the municipality is misguided. They're fighting City Hall Oh, you can't fight City Hall? These two ladies are. And they're going to share their story with us tomorrow night here on Maverick News, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.